Welcome to this Grandma's Life podcast. I'm your host, theciaellis. Get ready to laugh, learn, and grow with me as we explore growing old in an ever changing world. One of the good things about growing old is people judge you less when you say sometimes outrageous things. I'm getting older and I've had a fascinating life. I also have opinions. You may not agree with these opinions, and I may not care. Even now, I'm passionate about many things. I love to learn. I love quotes. I love my animals on the farm, and I care about my country. Join me as we explore loving life, even as we age. Today is August 18, 2024. This is episode 63. When is it right to die? And I wasn't so sure about the date because actually, this is the second time I recorded this. Uh, the first time, I don't know what was going on. I think it was my computer. It was running so very slowly. It took hours for the first recording to process, and then whenever I was getting into it, it said there was an issue. My audio went out, so I went ahead and published it, and it worked out pretty good. But when I went to go upload the video to the YouTube channel, it said that the it was not readable. So I could have just gone on since I got the audio out and not done the video. But I'm thinking, no, I've got a YouTube channel. It's everything's in sequential order, so we are redoing this. Farm happenings is I canned some salsa, and I think we got 6 pints out of it because everything's slowing down in the garden. So but you don't want to just let it sit and ruin. I connected my mom with her brother. That was kind of an interesting thing. Both of them are in their 80s. Mom's the youngest of 9 children, and Mom and Uncle Bill are the last two of that generation. And apparently, Uncle Bill had been trying to contact Mom. So my cousin Kevin contacted me and said, "What's going on?" And it ended up they had Dad's cell phone number, and Dad doesn't have a cell phone anymore. So we got between my brother and myself and my cousin Kevin, we got Mom and Uncle Bill hooked up and connected, and I was really it was kind of cool because Mom needs to be able to connect with him on occasionally and other family members too. So that worked out pretty good. The morning of my birthday, it was kind of neat. I turned 62 on August 8th. And I was about to head out and go do chores about 7:30 in the morning, and we could see on the radar like really thin, narrow strip was going to come through. Well, it ended up being just like a cold front blowing in, and it was muggy and hot and miserable already that early in the morning. And then this cold front blew in, and it was blowing everything around. It was a nice cool breeze. It was actually pretty wonderful. And then of course the it sprinkled a little bit afterward, but there was not a whole lot of rain or anything, not particularly with that set. But it was nice to do chores in decent weather that morning, and I was glad for it. The next day, some friends from my gym class where they were having a pool party, and I've been so tired lately. I don't know what my problem. I don't know if there's something wrong with me or what the deal is, but I've been very fatigued, very exhausted. But I schedule my day so tight. I mean, like I've got half an hour there, half an hour this, and half an hour that, and basically what it is, I do half an hour sitting down doing something, and it's half an hour getting up and doing something. And that's kind of been working out for me pretty good, if nothing else for, I guess, ADD or whatever, but also as I'm aging, I can do certain projects because I work hard. I do hard physical work, working on the farm, trying to build things, trying to do different things. But I don't last much more than an hour at a time doing that. So if I can schedule my day, most of it at 30-minute increments, I can actually get quite a bit done. But I was tired anyway. I was really glad to do the pool party because, like I said, I needed that time. But because the cold front had come through, it was only like in the 80s so most of us didn't get into the pool. But I still sat around for a couple hours talking to some wonderful friends and had a great time. They Because of the cool weather, I decided to put my rabbit does back in with a buck and see see if we can get some baby rabbits this time too. We'll see how that goes. And later on, a couple of days later, we got about 2 inches of rain. That was pretty cool. I took my meat birds to the processor. I had 18 out of 30 left between snakes and all that other stuff getting in. I don't know. There's just some of they just disappear sometimes, so you never know what is what was causing a problem. But I did have 18 very nice sized birds I took to the processor, and that was really great. It stormed hard up in Kansas where I took my birds, but that was good to get that done. And I got a video that I just put out on that one, is talking about stocking my freezer. So that's what I've done. I'm trying to get things straight. You think I would get it straight? I have to turn the air conditioner off because it makes a really weird noise on the computer. So I'm sitting here without air conditioning, but I got a fan down on the floor because if it sits up on the desk, it's loud too. So I'm trying to stay a little bit cool while I'm trying to do this podcast. Problems. Speaking of problems, I've been going and well, I go to all of Kenzie's softball games and I video all of them. And if you watched any of my other videos in the past, I could tell that my video camera was dying. Sometimes it just shut off in the middle of things, and I would have to work with it to come back on. So I knew there was a problem. And then finally, I did this thing where I couldn't even mess with the screen on it at all. So I had to bite the bullet and go buy a new camera. I was kind of bummed though. Well, and I also set up this new thing where I can do what they call fence cam, you know. It's like a bungee cord system. You put a little Ghost Pro style camera in a whole bracket system and can bungee cord it to the fence. And I'm been experimenting with that. I've been doing okay. I was gonna say I've been doing pretty good. I think I finally figured out the right angle to put it on. But when I was doing a game yesterday, apparently I didn't have a chip in it, so I didn't get any film. But that one, the one time when my main camera went out, that's when I put it on a tripod and put it in front of me, and I video everything that's on the field. Well, okay, rephrase that. I video what Kenzie's doing on the field, and then I have the fence cam that I've been aiming to get to do, so I can have a full view of the field, and it records everything on it. You know, because I just don't turn it off, but the fence cam, apparently the ball hit the fence and it set my angle high where all I could see was the sky. So I've worked out how to work around that, I believe, when I remember to put the memory chip into the camera. But I do have a new camera now. I'm learning how to use it. I'm still having a little bit of learning curve with that. Oh my gosh, guys. You know, I did a podcast on this several months ago about learning while getting old. And sometimes it just is that learning while getting old. Kenzie had a just yesterday, we just got over a um, tournament, softball tournament. On Thursday, they played two games, and then Saturday, they played another game. But the second game on Thursday, I squared off with the assistant coach because Kenzie is tough. She's 5'2", 108 pounds, has been for years. And but so she gets knocked around a little bit in all the sports, but she's usually tough enough that if she goes down within a second or two, she jumps up. Well, she and another little girl collided out in the softball field, and Kenzie went down, and she didn't get up for several seconds. So I'm jumping up, and I'm running to the fence. And by the time I got to the fence, Kenzie was finally up. But I asked the coach, I had asked the head coach, I said, "Hey, where's she hurt?" He goes, "Well, I don't know. Let me find out." So he went to the assistant coach and she goes, "She's not hurt." And I went, "Bullshit." If Kenzie stays down for more than a second, she's hurt. Well, she's up now. I said, "That's because she's tough." So I was mouthing her. So I did go to the head coach after the game. I said, "Hey, I'm sorry Mama Bear came out in me, but you can't mess with my granddaughter." And that poor man, he has to put up with so much out of parents, you know, teaching girls. He's a basketball coach, and he has worked so hard to learn softball rules, and he's actually done a really fine job. The girls are coming together good and doing a good job now. Finally, they had to learn to mesh, but he's been through a lot, and sometimes you look at him and he looks like he'd just rather be somewhere than out in the heat with a bunch of girls that anytime you yell they cry. I don't know. He's had a hard time. He's come around though. He's done a good job. All right, what I'm listening to, I just finished listening to Stormfront by Jim Butcher. He wrote that in the year 2000. And I know I mentioned him. I think it was in my last podcast. It was not what I was expecting. I was expecting a book about, I believe it was when Black Hawk Down, way back in the 90s or something like that, a helicopter issue with, a military thing. And that's what I thought I was getting. And I'm listening to this, but well, okay, that was called Stormfront also. Apparently, there's several books called Stormfront, and I didn't pay attention to the author. And when I bought the audio book, I bought this one, and it's a detective novel. And the detective is a wizard, and he's fighting the bad guys of the world. So, but it was good actually. Once I figured out what I was listening to and what was going on, even though it was not a genre I generally pay attention to, I have dealt with. It was a pretty good book, and I was glad to have listened to it. I'm in the second time through of The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and that was written in 2002. Uh, Sorry if you hear pages rattling. I did the podcast. I punched holes on the left side so I can put it in my notebook. I stapled it and put it away, and now I'm having to deal with stapled together stuff. So you just have to forgive me. All right, what I'm reading, The Growth System by Marjorie Wildcraft to 2021. Actually, I've been reading on that one for a while. I only get to it every few days, and I did learn something from her. I mean, I always learn something and everything, but what the most recent reading I had of hers, she was talking about getting bit by a snake, and what she had to do. She did not go to hospital. It was a copperhead, and she went through with her home therapies to get her through the snake bite, and it wasn't fun, but she did it, and she never went to the hospital. The a book I'm just starting is called How to Develop a Powerful Prayer Life with Dr. Gregory R. Frizzell, 1999. And I just finished the book Babylon Rising by Tim LaHaye and Greg Dinallo. And that was written in 2003. The book itself was pretty good. The ending, I didn't like the ending of the Babylon Rising book. I was kind of surprised. It's like the dude walks out of the room. We go, what? Okay, I guess it's over. But other than that, it was a pretty good book. All right, now for the main subject. When is it right to die? We've all seen Western and action movies where someone is terminally injured in a dire situation, and the protagonist of the movie has had to finish them off to end their suffering. Many of us have had to make the heart wrenching decision to have a beloved pet put down, also to end their suffering. These decisions are not to be taken lightly, yet, assisted suicide and euthanasia for humans is becoming more prevalent than ever. Patients with terminal illnesses, severely handicapped, maimed, paralyzed, and now suffering from deep depression are abdicating to be put out of their misery. So, when is it right to die? Between 1990 and 1998, Jack Kevorkian helped well over 1,000 over 100 people pass on to the next world with a device that would release the drugs that would cause their deaths when the patient pushed a button. Kevorkian stated that, quote, dying is not a crime, publicly championing a terminal patient's right to die by physician assisted suicide, unquote. And that was in Wikipedia. Canada now has medical assistance in dying, MAID, made legal in 2016, quote, for those whose death was reasonably foreseeable, unquote. In 2021, euthanasia was made available to, quote, include those suffering from a grievous and irremediable condition whose death was not reasonably foreseeable, unquote. Over 13,000 MAID deaths were reported in Canada in 2022. Isn't that amazing? 13,000 people in Canada alone chose to take their own lives. That's crazy. Canada, a country that provides free medical care, feels that this is a valid way to alleviate the expenses of long term care patients, selling the program as a way to end patient suffering. And this was also in Wikipedia. In Australia, Dr. Philip Nitschke has developed sarcopods, SARCO, a coffin like device, quote, consisting of a 3D printed detachable capsule mounted on a stand that contains a canister of liquid nitrogen to die by suicide through inert gas asphyxiation, unquote. Dr. Nitschke feels that if you want to die, you ought to be able to. And I got that from independent.co.uk. In Oregon, the founders of the Death with Dignity Act feel that the right to die lay between the physician and the patient. I have a little bit of experience in this as I had a stepdaughter that pursued this line at one time. She suffered from depression and other forms of mental illness in her adult life after recovering from a near life ending brain aneurysm as a child. The brain aneurysm, when they finally got into her brain to do the surgery, I say finally, obviously they did surgery very quickly, but they discovered that on one side of her brain there was not a cohesive series of veins and then capillaries and all that other stuff. It was a mass of capillaries. Sorry. It was a mass of capillaries, and the pressure of so many small capillaries with so much blood, the pressure of all the blood going through it, created an aneurysm that burst and really did almost kill her. So, and she was not the same after that. I think I understand that even I think she was 13 when she had the brain aneurysm, and so she went back to about the age of 5 and never developed past the age of 5, mentally and emotionally. So she suffered from depression and other problems, mental illnesses and stuff as a child, and then later on, not as a child but as an adult, later on she developed ALS, which is sometimes called Lou Gehrig's disease. It's a fatal neurological disorder that affects the nerve cells in the brain and the spinal cord. The brain loses its ability to initiate and control voluntary movements such as walking, talking, chewing, and other functions, as well as breathing. The muscles atrophy, and over time, the body systems shut down. Twyla applied for the Death with Dignity program, but was turned down, having something to do with the stage of the disease she was in at the time. And eventually, Twyla died of pneumonia suffocation. So, why am I talking about assisted suicide at all? Well, when my parents were in their 60s, they played tennis 3 days a week, 2 hours a day, and were in peak physical condition, especially for their ages. Mom was always physically gifted and would have been a sprinter in the Olympics when she was younger if she had been able to obtain some financial backing, which we're talking about in the 50s, so a lot has changed since then. While visiting my brother and his family out of state at the age of 65, Mom suffered a stroke. She lost the use of her right side and had to make the long, arduous journey of regaining partial use of her right side to walk again and to walk again. Many times, Mom stated that she wished she had not lived through that stroke. Now, she just turned 82 in February. Since that time, my dad has also had a stroke, and he lost half his brain. That was a devastating blow, as he had once been a highly intelligent, with the second highest IQ in all of Oklahoma when he was in ROTC as a teen. Dad's brain has deteriorated to dementia and now to Alzheimer's. My once hardworking, happy father is now a very angry, lost old man, and he's become a danger to himself and others. And he and mom no longer live together. Mom is with my brother, and dad is in a nursing facility. Interestingly, dad is still very determined to live. Now, please don't get me wrong. I do not want my parents dead. I also do not want them to suffer so. I would never abdicate for their deaths, especially dad, since he wants to live. But mom does not. All I want to do is help them. Unfortunately, there's little I can do for them. I live in Oklahoma and they live in Florida. My brother is doing an excellent job of caring for my parents. It used to be my job before they moved to Florida, so my feelings of responsibility are still high. To help me prepare for this podcast, I just finished reading When Is It Right to Die? The author Johnny Erickson Tata broke her neck in a diving accident when she was a teenager. In the book, she talks about the struggles of being paralyzed from the chest down. And she also talks about her niece, who at 5 years old started losing a battle with brain cancer, and what her family did to make her last days better. When they knew that she would not survive, they brought her home, played tea party with her, read her books, and continued to love her as she slowly lost her strength and passed. As her "I'll do it myself" spirit softened, her sweet, happy spirit came through. She knew she was dying and talked about seeing Jesus soon. Excuse me, this one's a rough one for me. Finally, one night, she told her mother she was ready to go home to Jesus, and she died peacefully in her own bed. In another example, Johnny tells of a woman who worked 3 jobs to put food on the table after her husband had committed suicide. A heart condition with several surgeries, some to amputate limbs no longer fed by blood from a weakened heart, left her weak but in good spirits. Soon she was on a ventilator, though, and over time she lost her will to live and asked for the ventilator to be removed. After a week, she passed. She tells of the movie, Johnny Erickson does, of the boy who could fly, where the father took his own life, leaving 2 children behind. And the son said, quote, "He didn't even try to fight. He just gave up. He didn't try," unquote. In another story, she tells about Dan, who was born with a neuromuscular disease, severely paralyzed and frail. Some people have said he'd be better off dead than disabled. But Dan is full of life, and it troubles me when they say that he's suffering needlessly or that he's imprisoned by his own body. Such phrases purport that to be compassionate, but reveal a fundamental fear that really says, "I'd hate to live like that." And I have to admit, that has crossed my mind many times when I see somebody who is severely handicapped. Johnny quoted Viktor Frankl. In the concentration camp, I remember 2 cases of would be suicide, which bore a striking similarity. Both used the typical argument they had nothing more to expect from life. In both cases, it was a question of getting them to realize that life was still expecting something from them. He also said each person could find valuable meaning in suffering. Johnny writes that possibly choosing to end your life on your own terms is a true act of selfishness. That is definite food for thought. Just so you know, Johnny got married in 1982. They're still happily married, and she's now 74 years old, even though she's paralyzed from the chest down. The last story I want to talk about in her book is how she and her family dealt with her father's death. When they were young, they went to go see the movie The Young Savages. This movie was about Eskimos, and in one scene, an elderly tribe member was left behind on an ice floe to die. I also read in a book, I believe, by James Michener about a Native American tribe whose elderly chief died, so his widow was left out in the cold with the horses to die overnight. Also in the book Sacagawea, when she was a child, and it was time to move south for the winter, her own grandmother stayed behind to die. Sacagawea snuck back the 2-day journey to check on her grandmother, only to find her torn apart by wolves. These stories have haunted me as I've watched my parents struggle in their old age. Mom and Dad were together for 63 years. Some were good and some were bad. They expected to grow old and die together. They did the grow old part, but Dad has become too dangerous as he slips deeper into Alzheimer's. He has 2 artificial knees and an artificial hip. Mom never fully regained her right side after her stroke, and they both have had a couple bad falls. Mom is slipping into dementia also. Both hold out hope that Dad will improve so they can get back together. My brother takes Mom to visit Dad every week, but he only remembers that he's very angry with my brother because he believes he has been put into the assisted living facility because my brother wants to run off with Mom and marry her. I believe this notion is finally slipping away to just remembering that he hates my brother, but doesn't remember why. This is difficult because my dad and my brother were once very close. The only person he truly remembers now is Mom, and neither Mom nor Dad is happy. They have lived long and fruitful lives. But back to the last story I wanted to relate to you from the book. Johnny's father, as he aged, suffered a series of strokes that left him virtually bedridden. By now, he was 90 years old. Johnny's parents sold the house in Maryland and moved to Florida, where Dad was put in a nice nursing home where her mother walked every day to visit and take care of his needs. He had frequent visits from family for a good period of time. Then suddenly, her dad took a turn for the worst, and a hospital stay did not help. After much discussion and prayer, the decision was made that their father would not receive a feeding tube. The family was constantly nearby to make him comfortable otherwise, and he died a few days later. Because they knew what their father wanted in advance and their ability to be there in his last days, the very difficult decision to withhold the feeding tube felt like the right choice for them. I didn't fully agree with everything that Johnny Erickson Tata wrote in her book, but I needed to read it to help me to come to terms with my own parent situation. I know many of you have also had to deal with some tough decisions with their aging parents. Now, this is an older book, but a very good one if you can get hold of it. And that took in several scenarios of making the case for somebody wanting to die. It still holds very viable information, including how to make your wishes known in your own passing. And she described several things that actually need to be checked into to make sure that it's really what you want and instead of what you think it is. I have long suspected that if mom were to die first, dad would want to go as soon after. She still lives, therefore, he is determined to live also, even in his current mental state. I've come to the conclusion that my will in this matter it helps little. God will take them when he's good and ready, and I just need to accept that. So, my question of the day or your thoughts, what are your thoughts on this matter? And what have you been through? How do you feel about this? I'd like to hear some of your stories about what you've been through or are going through. And let me know at theciaellis at gmail.com, THECIA at gmail.com. And just let me know. And maybe if you have some words of wisdom to pass on, I'd appreciate that too. All right. Self Reliance Festival is coming up October 5th and 6th. Guys, no joke, this is a really cool place to go to. They have hands-on things where you can learn so much. I mean, from knitting to how to stitch wounds to I don't know. And they have speakers. There's just all kinds of things. So basically, Self-Reliance Festival is a gathering of a lot of people. Actually, well, I mean, not so many that you can't deal with things. I can't remember what their numbers are, so it's not like it's a great big huge expo or anything like that. This is a festival, 75 to 100 people, something like that. No, I don't know how many it is. I won't lie. I can't count either, and I've been a few times, but I like it. I really like it. They do have some vendors there, but they've and good speakers, and they have workshops and all that other stuff. What is one thing that I have found? Not only is it where you can learn how to be self-reliant, to know that you can take care of your family and feed them, and whatever else happens in your life, whatever's happening in the world, whatever happening in your country, whatever you this is a way for you to learn how to take care of yourself. But the another cool thing about it is you do have the older full beard men and and some of them clean cut and all that other stuff too. They're all the way down to some blue hairs. There might be some blue hair people there. No, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about all so old that the ladies have their blue dye for their hair or whatever. Not dye, but tinting. I'm talking about pretty pretty liberal type people who, piercings, blue hair and all that other stuff. There's a few of them there too. But they get along and they want to help each other. They are there for the desire to learn how to take care of themselves. So I would really encourage you to go to that. That's October 5th and 6th. If you decide to go, and okay, so 5th and 6th are the Saturday and Sunday. and that's one price range. And if you look on the website, you can actually take in other workshops and stuff that start as early as Thursday. And I can't remember if there's a Monday one or not, but definitely Thursday and Friday some workshops, and then the regular thing on Friday and Saturday. So that's there. Oh, and go down for the link below and see and take care of that. Sorry, I got distracted. I usually do this stuff when nobody's here, and then all of a sudden I'm doing on a certain day because I've had to redo it. So I wasn't prepared for a few things. Sorry. But that's our October 5th and 6th. Go down the link below, and it'll help me, give me a little bit of help. It doesn't cost you any extra, it's just a little bit of an affiliate link that I have. All right, guys. I can be found at grandmashomestead.farm, Grandma's Homestead YouTube channel, Farm Animal Life YouTube channel, Kinsey Lackey Sports YouTube channel. I am also on X as theciaellis. And when I do X, I just do a quote of the day and a scripture of the day and post that on there too. Of course, there's a few other things I do on X also, but those are my main thing that I want. First of all, I want to do the scripture of the day, and I do it as a video, and I don't. It's not written out. It's as a video, so I am actually memorizing a particular scripture, and I'm memorizing a particular quote. And these are scriptures and quotes that have touched me, and I want to get those out for people, for not just to get the scripture out for people, but the quotes to give people something to think about and dwell on, and just something that's not always just terrible political news or world news or anything like that. I can also be found on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, MeWe, and Rumble, all in some version of theciaellis or theciae. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today, and hopefully this one will go through better. God bless. I'll see you next time.